Sometimes, the hardest person to forgive is yourself. In today's emotional story, an anonymous woman shares how one message from her estranged son turned her entire life upside down. What started as fear became forgiveness, and what began as guilt became the most powerful reunion she could ever imagine. Broken hearts, stay tuned till the end, because her journey from shame to healing might just touch your heart too. For years, I lived behind walls I built myself. Walls of guilt, shame, and fear of being judged, of being reminded of the choices that broke my family apart. I was the kind of woman who smiled in public but cried into her pillow every night. My name isn't important, I'm not here to be recognized. I'm here because the weight of silence became too heavy to carry alone. My story began 22 years ago, the day I walked away from my marriage. I told myself it was because my husband was controlling, cold, and distant, but deep down, I knew I was also running from the version of myself I didn't understand. The day I left, my son, Daniel, was only 7. He stood by the door holding his little backpack, not crying, just staring. That image still lives behind my eyelids every night. Years passed. I tried to rebuild. I worked, traveled, even changed my name. But no matter how many times I started over, something inside me stayed broken. I would see boys in the street who looked like Daniel, the same dark curls, the same intense eyes, and my heart would twist until I couldn't breathe. But I couldn't go back. I told myself he would hate me if I did. Then, one afternoon in 2025, everything changed. I received a message on an old Facebook account I hadn't used in years. The sender's name made my knees weak, Daniel M. It was short, almost awkward. Hi Mom. I think we should talk. My hands shook so badly that I dropped my phone. For minutes, I couldn't breathe. It was like time froze. All the guilt, all the sleepless nights, every tear I'd ever shed came rushing back in one wave. I had imagined that moment 1,000 times, but now that it was real, I was terrified. For hours I stared at the message. What could I possibly say? I'm sorry. I missed you. Those words felt too small for the years I'd stolen from him. I almost closed the app, but something inside whispered, if you don't answer now, you'll lose him again. So I replied, simply. I've been waiting for this message for years, Daniel. I never stopped thinking about you. His reply came almost instantly. I'm in town. Can we meet? That was the moment I threw away my fear. For the first time in 22 years, I was ready to face everything, the pain, the judgment, and most of all, the truth about why I really left. I didn't know what he wanted to say, or whether he would even forgive me. But I knew I had to see him. I had no idea that meeting would open a door to the part of my past I had tried hardest to forget. What began as a reunion soon turned into a confrontation with secrets I thought I had buried forever. That was the day my fear began to fade, and the day I found not just my son, but a truth that would change everything I believed about love, guilt, and motherhood. The day I met my son again, the city looked different. Or maybe it was me, noticing things I'd ignored for years. The smell of roasted corn by the roadside, the sound of children laughing, the glow of sunlight breaking through the clouds. Everything felt too alive, too real, as if the world itself knew I was about to face my past. Daniel had chosen a small cafe by the park. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it echo inside my chest as I approached. I hadn't seen him since he was a child, but when I walked through that door, I knew him instantly. The shape of his face had changed, but the eyes, those deep brown eyes, were the same. His expression, however, wasn't what I expected. It wasn't anger. It wasn't forgiveness either. It was unreadable. He stood up slowly. Hi, he said, his voice calm but uncertain. Hi, I whispered back, forcing a trembling smile. My throat felt dry, and every step toward him felt like walking through years of regret. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he gestured for me to sit. The silence between us was heavy, filled with everything we didn't know how to say. You look good, I finally said, trying to sound casual. He nodded. You too. It's strange, seeing you like this. I know, I murmured. I've imagined this moment for years, but now that it's here, I don't even know where to begin. He looked down, fiddling with his coffee cup. Why did you leave? The question cut straight through me. I had rehearsed 1,000 explanations, that I was young, confused, broken, but all of them sounded hollow now. Because I was scared, I confessed. Not of your father, but of myself. I didn't know how to be a mother and still be me. I thought leaving would make things easier for everyone. His jaw tightened. It didn't. I know, I whispered. I know it didn't. I thought about you every single day, Daniel. He finally met my eyes, and I saw something soften there, not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. I used to hate you, he said quietly. But then I started to wonder what kind of pain makes a mother leave her own son. And now, seeing you, I don't know what to feel anymore. I reached out, hesitating. You don't have to decide today. I just wanted you to know that I never stopped loving you. He didn't pull away when my hand touched his. His skin was warm, familiar. The years between us seemed to dissolve in that moment. After a long pause, he said, there's something I need to tell you. It's about Dad. My heart clenched. What about him? Daniel's voice trembled. He's gone. 2 years ago. Cancer. I tried to find you, but I didn't even know where to start. The words hit me like a storm. I covered my mouth, tears burning my eyes. Oh God. I didn't know. He nodded. He never remarried. He kept your pictures. He said you were the love of his life, even when you left. I broke down right there. The walls I had built for decades crumbled. Daniel reached across the table, holding me, and for the first time in 22 years, I felt the warmth of my son's embrace. When I finally stopped crying, he said softly, there's more, Mom. Something about Dad, and about me. Something you need to know. I looked up, terrified and curious all at once. What is it? I asked. He hesitated, his voice shaking. It's about why he never told you the truth before you left. That moment marked the beginning of everything I wasn't ready to face, the truth buried under years of silence, and the secret that would change everything I thought I knew about my family. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. His tone had changed, soft but heavy, like he was about to drop a truth that could rearrange my world. I could see it in his eyes too, the hesitation, the fear, and the sadness of someone who'd carried a burden for far too long. Daniel, I whispered, what do you mean the truth? What didn't your father tell me? He leaned back, exhaling slowly, as if gathering strength. You always thought he drove you away, didn't you? That he made you feel small and unwanted. I nodded. The memories came flooding back, his cold stares, the arguments behind closed doors, the nights I cried myself to sleep. Yes, I said. He was never violent, but he made me feel like I was disappearing. Daniel looked down at his hands. He wasn't cruel because of you, Mom. He was cruel because of what he was hiding. The silence between us thickened. What was he hiding? I asked. He wasn't my biological father. The world stopped spinning. I blinked, trying to process the words. What? I whispered, my voice cracking. He nodded, his eyes glistening. I found out when I was 15. He told me after one of our worst fights. He said he wasn't the man who gave me life, just the man who tried to raise me. I pressed a hand to my chest. My heart was racing so hard it hurt. No, that's not possible. He would have told me. I would have known. Daniel looked at me, his expression pained. He said he found out after you left. He did a test. That's why he never reached out to bring you back. He thought you betrayed him. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. No. I didn't cheat on him, Daniel. I swear I didn't. My voice broke, shaking like the ground beneath me. He looked confused. Then how? I don't know, I whispered, trying to think. I never stepped outside my marriage. But, before. Laughter carried through the wind, a sound that reminded me of Daniel at 7, the last time I saw him before I left. Then I saw him. Michael stood near the railing, older now, silver touching his temples, but his posture, that quiet confidence, hadn't changed. When he turned and our eyes met, the years collapsed between us. I froze. The air left my lungs. He smiled softly, uncertainly. You came. I nodded, my throat too tight for words. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. No explanations, no apologies, just two souls who had spent half their lives haunted by what-ifs. Finally, he spoke. I wanted to find you sooner, but your husband, he made sure I couldn't. I tried for years. When I finally found Daniel, I almost didn't tell him who I was. My knees felt weak. Why now? Because time ran out on too many things, he said quietly. And because I needed you to know, I never stopped loving you. The words hit like a wave. I turned away, tears already spilling. You don't get to say that, I whispered. You disappeared. You left without a word. I didn't leave, he said, stepping closer. Your father did. He told me you were marrying someone else. I thought you'd chosen him. I looked up sharply. My father? He never told me that. Michael's eyes darkened. He hated me. Said I wasn't good enough for you. So I left town. By the time I came back, you were married, and pregnant. I covered my mouth, overwhelmed. Oh, my God. He nodded, pain etched into every line of his face. When I saw Daniel's photo years later, I knew. He looked just like me when I was his age. I tried to reach you, but your husband made sure I couldn't. The truth cut deeper than any lie ever could. All the years of guilt, the broken marriage, the loneliness, all of it rooted in a lie told by someone who claimed to protect me. I sat down, my legs shaking. All this time, I thought I'd ruined everything. Michael sat across from me, his voice barely a whisper. We both paid for choices that weren't ours. The wind brushed between us, carrying the scent of the sea, familiar, almost forgiving. After a long silence, he said, Daniel told me how strong you are. He said you faced everything alone. I don't expect you to forgive the past. I just wanted you to know the truth before it's too late. Something inside me cracked open, not in pain, but in relief. For the first time in decades, the ghosts of my past finally had faces, and they weren't as terrifying as I remembered. When I finally spoke, my voice trembled but. Your father and I married, there was someone else. We broke up abruptly. He disappeared, and I never saw him again. Maybe, I swallowed hard. Maybe that's the truth your father never wanted me to know. Daniel's eyes softened. That's why he changed after you left. He wasn't angry anymore, Mom. He was broken. I sat there, trembling. All the guilt, all the self-blame I had carried for years suddenly tangled into something more complex, grief, confusion, and a strange, painful clarity. Daniel reached for my hand again. I didn't tell you this to hurt you, he said. I just thought you deserved to know why he couldn't forgive you. I wiped my tears, forcing myself to breathe. You did the right thing. I've lived in the dark long enough. We sat there for what felt like hours, lost in memories neither of us fully understood. When the sun began to set, Daniel said quietly, there's one more thing. The man, the one who might be my biological father, he's still alive. My pulse quickened. How do you know that? He found me last year. He said he'd been searching for you for decades. He didn't want to disturb your life, but he wanted to know if I was okay. I felt my whole body go still. He found you? Daniel nodded. He wants to meet you, Mom. He said he still loves you. My mind swirled with disbelief. The past I'd buried had clawed its way back to me, demanding to be faced. Every choice, every lie, every piece of fear that had defined my life was now standing at my door again. I realized, as Daniel looked at me with quiet compassion, that I was no longer just trying to find my son, I was about to find myself, too. Didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the past replayed itself like an unfinished film. The young woman I used to be, bright, hopeful, and reckless, stood before me in memory, laughing beside a man whose touch once made the world stand still. His name was Michael, and he was my first everything, first love, first heartbreak, first reason I ever believed in forever. And now, decades later, he was alive, and he had found my son. By morning, my body felt numb, my heart heavy with 1,000 what-ifs. Daniel texted me the address of a quiet garden restaurant by the old marina. He'll be there at noon, the message read. I stared at it for minutes, my hands trembling. I almost didn't go. I almost let fear win again. But something deep inside me whispered, you've already lost too much hiding from the truth. So I went. When I arrived, the world felt painfully bright. The sunlight shimmered on the water, the air smelled of salt and jasmine, and somewhere in the distance, a child's was steady. Thank you for finding him, for finding me. Michael reached across the table, not to hold me, but simply to rest his hand over mine. It was enough. The years of silence, shame, and fear began to dissolve in that small gesture of human forgiveness. As the sun sank over the water, I realized something simple but profound. Sometimes, love doesn't die, it just waits for courage to return. The next morning, the light through my window felt softer, almost forgiving. I lay in bed for a while, staring at the ceiling, feeling something I hadn't in years, peace. It wasn't the loud kind, the one that comes after a victory. It was quiet, still, the kind that arrives after you've cried all your tears and accepted that some stories end not in perfection, but in understanding. Daniel came over later that day. I could tell he had been nervous, the way his shoulders were slightly tense, his smile hesitant. He sat down across from me, just like his father had done the day before, and for a moment, I was overwhelmed by how much of both men I saw in him. How was it? He asked, though I could tell he already knew the answer. Hard, I admitted. But good. Healing, maybe. For both of us. He nodded. He told me he still loves you. He said finding you was like finding the missing piece of his life. I smiled faintly. We both spent too long running from ghosts. I guess it's time we stop. We sat in silence for a while, sipping tea. The tension that used to hang between us, that invisible wall of blame and guilt, was gone. In its place was something new, something fragile but real, forgiveness. I used to hate you, Daniel said quietly, for leaving me. I looked up, meeting his gaze. But now, he continued, I understand. You weren't running from me. You were running from the pain, the lies. And maybe you needed that time to find yourself again. His words pierced my heart in the gentlest way possible. You have no idea how much that means to hear, I whispered. He smiled softly. I do. Because I needed to find myself too. Meeting you again, it helped me understand where I come from. It made me realize I didn't lose a mother. I just had to wait for her to come home. The tears came again, but this time, they didn't hurt. They felt cleansing. Daniel stood, and when he hugged me, I held him tight, tighter than I ever had before. It wasn't the embrace of guilt anymore. It was the embrace of two people finally free. That evening, I went to the old park near the marina. The air was warm, the water calm. I walked along the pier until the wind brushed through my hair and the sun melted into the horizon. I thought of all the versions of me that had lived before, the young girl who believed in forever, the wife who lost herself in fear, the mother who ran away, and the woman who finally stopped hiding. For years, I carried the shame of being the one who left. But now, I understood that sometimes, we leave not because we don't love, but because we've forgotten how to stay when love becomes too heavy to hold. I closed my eyes and whispered into the wind, "I'm sorry. And thank you, for waiting." Somewhere in my heart, I felt Daniel's forgiveness settle beside my own. And for the first time in decades, the fear that once ruled my life was gone. Completely gone. When I turned to leave, the world felt lighter. The weight I had carried for half a lifetime had finally lifted. I wasn't the same woman who ran away all those years ago. I was a mother who had found her son, a woman who had faced her past, and a soul finally ready to begin again. As I walked away from the pier, I realized that the day I found my son was also the day I found myself. The day I threw away my fear. The day my story finally made peace with its own ending. This story is based on real-life experiences submitted anonymously for emotional reflection and awareness. It contains mature themes about family, regret, and reconciliation, intended for adult audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. If this story moved you, take a moment to breathe, reflect, and remember, it's never too late to make peace with your past. Speech balloons, share your thoughts in the comments. Someone out there might need your words today. Thumbs up like this story if it touched your heart. Bell subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another emotional confession. Because every week, we share true stories that remind us, healing is possible, even after the deepest pain. See you in our next video. Red Heart.